I can't find my pink cap. Anyways, I just saw Blink twice. Let's talk about it. Directed by Zoe Kravitz, in her directorial debut stars her fiance, Channing Tatum, Naomi Ackie, I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name, Aaliyah Shawkat, Kyle MacLachlan, Haley Joel Osment, Christian Slater. I feel like I haven't seen him in a minute. Was he in Oppenheimer? Everybody was in Oppenheimer. I didn't think she was gonna make it. Nope. Girl's trying to back into a parking spot. So our movie begins with a trigger warning. I saw something like that on Twitter. I thought it was a joke, but nope, right before the movie starts, we get a trigger warning. I don't think I've ever seen that on the big screen. Now, Disney Plus, right around the happenings of George Floyd, added disclaimers to some of their movies like Gone with the Wind and Aladdin, just to, I thought it was dumb. I'm not even gonna go there. But yeah, there's a trigger warning. I have many opinions on trigger warnings and those who are adamant about having trigger warnings before films. But here's the thing though, this is supposed to be a social commentary, and the whole point of a social commentary is to challenge people's understandings of the real world, of reality, and also to see things from a completely different perspective. There's a big difference between a trigger warning and a rating. The rating system being G, PG, PG-13, R, NC-17, and then not rated, but we won't go there. This is rated R. You can go to filmratings.com and look up the rating and see why it received that rating. And everything it says in that rating is what it said in that trigger warning. This is the difference. A rating tells you what's in it. A trigger warning tells you what to expect. So before the movie even starts, you have these crazy big expectations. You've already braced yourself and put up a safety wall between you and the film. That's the problem here. And that this is not the kind of movie where you want to put up a wall, because this is supposed to be a social commentary. The whole point is being challenged. And if you've already put up a wall because of that trigger warning, you're not going to be challenged. I think it defeats the purpose when you coddle your audience. I mean, if you are someone who is easily triggered because of trauma, this might not be for you. You need to protect your heart, protect your mind. You are responsible for you. That's just my opinion. But on to the movie. So this is about a woman named Frida and her best friend Jess. They work as waitresses for different events. And we have Slater King, played by Channing Tatum, who is a tech billionaire who is going through some, soul searching and reinventing himself, because clearly he has been through some big party phases and he's trying to become a new man, a better man. He meets Frida at a party. He's immediately taken by her, invites her to spend some time with him on his private island, also with some friends. This movie reminds me, it's like a mix between The Invitation that came out in 2022 and then 50 Shades of Grey. There are parts of this that really just reminded me, like, are we trying to poke fun at that? That's what I thought at the beginning at first, and then I kind of dismissed that. But definitely, this tech billionaire, this billionaire of sorts, with a therapist who's very much involved in his life. If you've read the books, then you know what I'm talking about. While this movie has a lot of things to say about women and sexual violence and just the ridiculous expectations placed on women in the company of men, I feel like this movie doesn't quite say what it's trying to say effectively, because it's trying to be so forceful with it. It's like when you scroll through TikTok and you see someone who's just being really loud trying to make a point and they're not saying anything at all. This movie has a voice, but it's screaming with strain. Does that make sense? We have a solid beginning. We have a very interesting end. There was a piece of the ending where it got a little too girl boss for me, when I'm like, oh my god, this is so cheesy. It's just so cheesy. But a bit comical, but an interesting end. I'd say a good end, but the middle kind of drags a bit, where these girls are on an island, they're with a bunch of dudes and they're having a good time, and so the same thing keeps repeating over and over and over and over again. We don't get a clue that something has been happening to them until we get towards that third act. I feel like we should have been getting something in the middle to kind of keep us along. I was starting to get bored. It's not bad though. The cinematography is worth a ticket alone. The way this is shot, I mean, you can tell this is an actress, getting behind the camera. Actors, when they become directors, the way they frame things, the way they choose to frame people, it's almost like they're framing people the way they've always wanted to be framed. She doesn't want to leave the movies. It's so cute. Probably not for her parents, but from this distance, it's cute. So structurally, it's a little weak. Character development, I feel like it's just kind of weak. It's not as strong as it could be. I'm going to show her a little grace because she also co-wrote this. She directed this. This is her first, dipping her toes behind the camera, so to speak. And I think there is so much potential in Zoe Kravitz. She's very creative with how she chooses to tell the story. Let me rephrase. She's very creative with how she chooses to show the story. She just needs more practice and more opportunities to work on telling it. I felt like if she had been working with someone different to co-write this, someone who was an expert in structure and also social commentary and how to get that across in a subtle but also very profound way, this would have been absolutely bonkers. Like, this would have been excellent, but it just fell a little short. It had a very boring middle. I was very bored in the middle. I loved the beginning. The end was cool. But the way this film was shot, the angles they chose to use, the way they framed the actresses, there is no boring shot in this movie. Everything is intentional. Just little things like the way they put a camera in the trash can to show her throwing something away. The way they put a camera in a mirror, just the way they do their close-ups, and it's just beautifully done. Shots of angles and feet. Everything speaks. The cameraman, the cinematographer definitely sets the tone for this movie. I feel like that's the standout here, is the way this film is shot. I wanted more from Channing Tatum. I don't feel like we got as much from him as we could have gotten. This is the most dramatic and serious I've seen him in a very long time. He's talented. He is eye candy for sure. I mean, it's Zoe Kravitz. She is obviously in love with this man, engaged to him. She is obsessed with his eyes. She loves that man's eyes. The wardrobe choices, the way they put the women in all white, the men as well, but just putting them in all white, this illusion that everything's pure and beautiful and nothing's wrong. The symbolism with the stain on her chest, the red stain on her chest, kind of reminds me a bit of the Scarlet Letter, kind of giving you a hint as to what's happening. So this is where we get into spoiler territory. So if you're someone who wants to see this movie, this is where you want to stop. So this is about a woman who has been through a great trauma. We don't find this out until the end, but she's been through a great trauma and completely forgot about it. And this kind of serves as a metaphor for people who don't confront their trauma, who don't take the time to really explore what they've been through. And a lot of times when you don't take the time to really deep dive and explore what you've been through, you have a habit of repeating it. And because she has been led to forget this thing that happened to her, she finds herself in the same situation again. We also see this in Channing Tatum's character, Slater, that he went through a great trauma before the age of 10 and completely forgot about it. And because he's never confronted this trauma, he's found himself repeating this cycle because he doesn't see what's wrong, because there's no personal connection to it. The ending was super cheesy. Like the very ending, like the last scene of the movie was super cheesy. I rolled my eyes though. Everything before that in the last act, I liked it. But that last scene, I'm like, oh golly, this is so stupid. I have to go through my list of movies that I have seen. But in terms of movies about violence against women or about predatory men, Barbarian still has my vote in terms of being a social commentary and using symbolism and narrative to tell the story. But it's not bad though. I mean, again, it's worth a ticket. It's a beautiful debut from her. So much potential. Very creative. You can kind of see the way her brain works in this, and I love that part of it. I just had issues with the structure and that boring, dragging middle. But yeah, I'd say a solid 6.5, 7 out of 10. Not bad, you know. A lot of potential. I look forward to seeing what she does in the future.